We saw a tragedy yesterday. A synagogue was under siege, many people lost their lives, but I don't necessarily believe that is a sign of the cultural civil war, the second civil war, which we've talked about a lot. I think we've seen a lot of these wingnut attacks. This guy, he hated Donald Trump. He did. He said that Donald Trump was a globalist. He didn't vote for him. He didn't want a MAGA hat. And he went out and he committed this atrocity, this attack. We have this op-ed called A Scary Time in America because there is the guy Caesar Sack who mailed those fake devices. Well, I call them, fake maybe isn't the right word, but they weren't rigged to go off. They were able to go off because they had real materials in them. But my understanding is that the intention was to make people scared. Apparently, they have a statement now where he said something like, "I just wanted to scare people. I don't want to hurt anybody," and none of them did go off. So the reasonable assumption is that it was an act of terror, but not meant to cause physical harm to people. I want to talk about the escalation in the Civil War and why I think one issue isn't, one issue is. But I posted a meme. I want to show you real quick before I read this op-ed from CNN. I wrote, "Every time there is political violence," and the Spider-Man meme. Are you familiar with the Spider-Man? It's two identical Spider-Mans pointing the finger at each other. Okay? And this meme has a general usage. In response, a lot of people on the right immediately understood what I was saying. Some of them got mad at me and disagreed, but they, for the most part, understood the point of the meme. That two identical people are pointing at each other, right? Every time there is political violence. The point of the meme is just a general idea. Memes condense ideas and they share them with people. And the idea here that most people on the right understood and most people on the left did not understand is that they're both blaming each other for the political violence. What was interesting is that the worst reaction from the right was, "Tim, you're wrong. The left is responsible for the political violence. We're not equal." Okay, you disagree with my making the meme. I understand that. I really assumed most people would see it and be like, "No, we're not identical." However, the left took it in an entirely different direction and said things that made no sense and were never a part of the meme. They were saying things like, here's one, you can see at the bottom. "Literal mass murdering Nazis versus people who interrupt people's meals, totally the same thing." Where did I ever include any information about Nazis or protests at restaurants? I didn't. And it was only the left that took it to mean this. And I was scrolling through, it's got 154 responses. I'm scrolling through this, 720 retweets, by the way, which is another good example of centrists and the right can understand memes. We can see these things, but the left, for whatever reason, can't. It's the weirdest thing, okay? The reason why I think this is important, and when talking about the op-ed from the A Scary Time in CNN, is there's a couple things I want to dissect from this. Maybe I won't read the CNN. We'll see what happens. There's a couple things I want to dissect from this meme. The left assumed it meant Antifa versus Nazis. Why? Why did they do that? There's a few reasons. One, they can't understand memes. They can't understand the context or the ideas being conveyed. Some people said to me that it's because they can't empathize and they can't understand ideology outside of their own. And I believe this is true because there's another article that I've posted before from Quillette where I think it's Jonathan Haidt's work, psychologist. He said that when they would take a conservative, present them with a problem and say, address this problem as though you were a progressive, they could. But when you took a progressive and said, address this problem as a conservative, they could not. Meaning that when people on the left see this, they can't understand how someone else will feel, right? The other thing is, when someone looks at this and assumes that there's Antifa versus Nazis, when none of that is included here, there's another thing I see. The right understood this was about general politics, for the most part, not all of them, but for the most part, like 90%, saw this and said, he's saying that the left and the right are both responsible for the rhetoric and pointing at each other. Yes, to an extent, right? I understand it's not an equal balance. I understand the meme is about equivalence because I'm trying to insinuate there is some. When Donald Trump jokes about body slamming reporters, he said a bunch of things at his rallies about punching people, knocking them out, he'll pay for legal fees. He's condemned more so in recent times, and the left has been on the wrong side of this. But the point I'm trying to make is that yesterday when this event happened, the left was blaming the right and the right was blaming the left. The right was saying Farrakhan and all these people, this is what you support. And the left was saying gab and hate speech. But here's the thing. The right, for the most part, understood this was about general American politics. Why? Because when the right saw the meme, In the Rorschach test of this meme, what did they see? They saw themselves. Everyone did. And when the right saw this, they imagined Democrats and Republicans, left versus right. The left, however, what they saw was Antifa and Nazis, which means they themselves view themselves as the extreme far left, not mainstream leftists. The responses from the general left-leaning people were that they were the mirror image to Nazis, right? Nazis, the left. When the right looked at it, they were like conservatives and liberals, meaning the left, for the most part, has pulled much more to the fringe. I want to read through some of this CNN op-ed where they're talking about a scary time in America. And the reason I want to read just through a little bit is because it talks about these attacks, and I want to talk about the escalation of the Civil War a little bit after. Look, we dragged on a little bit with that meme, but I think it's really interesting when you think about it. They write, less than 24 hours after authorities arrested a man accused of terrorizing the nation with mail bombs, another man shouting anti-Semitic slurs and armed with an AR-15 rifle and 3 handguns opened fire at a Pittsburgh synagogue. Donald Trump called the attack pure evil and said our nation and the world are shocked and stunned by the grief. Then he headed to Illinois for a campaign rally 10 days before the midterm elections. The trail of anti-Semitism and other hate speech on the suspect's social media accounts was a familiar marker of domestic terror, wrote J. Perini. Racism gathers into its dark embrace haters of every kind. Their victims can be of any minority group, Jew, Muslim, Latino, Black, gay. For a country awash in guns, hate erupting into murderous violence is a chronic condition. And while the president is no anti-Semite, his rhetoric has fueled and empowered racists of every stripe. Americans, wake up, please. Remember why we exist at all. We were founded by immigrants fleeing persecution abroad. And I want to highlight this because a lot of people on the left pointed the finger at Donald Trump, hence the meme I was showing. They said Trump is encouraging this, Trump enables this, white supremacy and all that stuff. When in reality, Trump has been extremely pro-Israel. He wanted to, I don't know if they did move the capital of Israel to Jerusalem, but it caused this huge wave of protests. And the right has said Trump is one of the best presidents on supporting Israel. Hence, you have the right saying that the left was encouraging Farrakhan and not dealing with him. He's not banned from Twitter, even though Gab just got suspended and banned from its platforms. And the left is blaming the right. The escalation isn't going to stop. It won't stop. It got to the point where this guy, Cesar Sayoc, let me say this on Cesar Sayoc. Did Trump inspire this man to mail these fake bombs out? The answer to that is no. He did not. Cut and dry, plain and simple. The man was a career criminal. He had done this in the past. He had made threats before. He was arrested for it before. But did Trump inspire the targets? The answer is to a certain degree, right? It's not absolute, but to a certain degree, yes. It's not just Trump, but conservative media and the highlighting of the people on this list, specifically because of attacks, verbal attacks in politics. Does that make any of the people responsible? Does it make Trump responsible? No. 100% no. In no way has Trump ever called for violence against anybody. Well, I'm sorry. Take that back. I misspoke there. In no way has Trump been calling for violence against his political opponents. At rallies in the past, he did allude to punching protesters and paying people, defending them in court and things of that nature. And he was called out for it. He had to issue statements on it. So I misspoke right there. That's not what I meant to say. What I meant to say is, when it comes to Clintons and Obama, Trump is critical of them. Is he calling for violence? No. But here's the point I want to make about the escalation, is that both sides don't care. They don't care. It's true. Farrakhan is on Twitter saying horrible things about Jews, and Twitter won't ban him. They won't. And Farrakhan is leaps and bounds worse than Alex Jones. The left doesn't care that Donald Trump says political violence is wrong. In his rallies, numerous rallies now, Trump has said political violence is unacceptable. It's damage to our democracy. And he even said the synagogue perpetrator should get the death penalty. We should bring the death penalty back. I personally disagree with the death penalty, but Trump has been very strong on denouncing terror and denouncing this violence. The left does not care. They don't. Okay? It's true that radicalization can lead to extreme violence and acts of terror. It's a fact. And therein lies a big challenge for everybody that nobody wants to back down. Now, is it conservatives, the average conservative, going out and committing acts of violence? Absolutely, 100% not. This guy, Cesar Sayoc, was a career criminal who had a history of some kind of mental illness, and he mailed a bunch of packages to people. Was it because of conservatives? No, it wasn't. The guy was just off his rocker. The same thing can be said for the guy at the synagogue, off his rocker. But the left, let's go back to this meme. When the left sees this meme, they view themselves as Antifa, and they view everyone on the right as Nazis, plain and simple. And this is why they couldn't understand the meme, because they can't see the nuance. They can't see that it's not black and white. And they can't see the point is, I don't live in Wally world where everyone's a Nazi and everyone else is Antifa, but many of them do. Not all of them, and maybe not even most of them, but enough of them do on Twitter to where they see this and they associate Donald Trump specifically with the guy who hates Donald Trump. Seriously, the guy who went to the synagogue hated Donald Trump, hated him, but still it's Trump's fault because they can't understand the nuance. And for whatever reason, you know, as I said before, I don't think it's that the left can't meme, but that those can't meme will drift left because they don't think critically. And so those who don't think critically don't challenge their preconceived notions of things. They don't challenge the mainstream narrative, the things they hear. And so they become what some people refer to as default liberals or NPCs. The last thing I want to say on this, because it's a kind of dejected video, is that I believe we have found an interesting Rorschach/Turing test, a meme Turing test, to determine whether or not someone is a critical thinker or whether or not someone is an extremist. Whatever it is about this meme, whatever it is, you can see that the right and the left are watching two different screens, right? We've heard that analogy. I think it was Scott Adams. It's the same movie, but the people are each watching something different. And that's what's really strange, is that the left overwhelmingly saw Nazis and Antifa pointing at each other, even though I'm talking specifically about mainstream America, not the fringe weirdo extremists. It's like they can't see outside of the fringe weirdo extremists. Everything is ideologically black and white. If you are on the right, all of you are Nazis. And someone else brought up a really interesting point about this. The left is a collective. With intersectional feminism, everything is intertwined. If you're not for trans rights, then you're not for women's rights. But on the right, people are individuals. What ends up happening is that individuals understand nuance, and they drift to the right, where they want to have their individuality respected. And people on the left view the right as a monolith. And thus, we see the extreme divide in not understanding a simple meme. I am a centrist. I am center-left. Centrists understood it. The right understood it. Not everybody. The left overwhelmingly did not understand it. You could find out what the root of this is, show it to somebody and ask them what they see, and based on their answer, know where they stand, likely, in terms of politics. It's not absolute. What I'm trying to say is, we might have something here where we can actually ask people, what do you see? And get a high probability chance that they might lean to the left or to the right. Would be really fascinating. Anyway, this video is kind of all over the place. It is what it is. There's an escalation, there's violence, and, you know, these things got to stop, but I don't think anyone's going to back down. And, you know, I don't even know what to title this video. But thanks for hanging out. I'll see you guys tomorrow on the main channel at 4 p.m. So, thanks.